Chelsy Davy has publicly announced the birth of her third child, Finn, sharing new photographs. These images depict a life of independent success and apparent contentment, presenting a notable contrast to recent public narratives surrounding Prince Harry. This juxtaposition offers a specific lens through which to examine Harry's past decisions and current challenges, from his two-child announcement to recent reports on his personal life. This analysis will explore what these combined elements signify for a man who observes the life he once articulated a desire for being lived by another, while his own circumstances reportedly become increasingly challenging. This discussion will span considerable breadth, and I intend to address each point directly. We begin with Chelsy Davy and the specific significance of these photographs beyond the apparent. Chelsy Davy has now posted photographs of her newborn son, named Finn. At 40 years old, she appears radiant, composed, and genuinely content, a contentment that seems independent of professional staging or managed public relations. With 3 children and a successful jewelry business she developed independently, her life, based on external observations, appears to align with her stated aspirations. Meanwhile, across an ocean in a Montecito residence, a man who once envisioned a large family with her under an African sky now encounters these images. It is possible to misinterpret this situation, and one might infer a sentiment akin to, "I wish I had married Chelsy Davy." However, according to individuals familiar with Prince Harry, the announcement of Chelsy's third child reportedly affected him more significantly than many other events over the past year. This impact is not attributed to her specifically, nor to any sentiment beyond goodwill for her well-being, but rather to what these photographs symbolize: the distinct life she is leading, and the distinct life he is not. He reportedly began having affairs with various other women. Chelsy Davy and Prince Harry maintained an intermittent relationship for nearly a decade, from approximately 2000 when. This period was marked by the separations and reconciliations typical of relationships where genuine affection is present, but external conditions pose difficulties. Prince Harry is said to be once again profoundly affected. While he is unlikely to acknowledge this publicly, particularly amidst reports of his marriage to Meghan Markle's challenges, former close friends of the Duke have indicated that Chelsy Davy's choice to have a third child, by all accounts from those who knew them during that period, individuals who knew them as people, not just public figures, their connection was authentic, distinct, and rooted in shared experiences that transcended mere celebrity status or mutual public exposure. They genuinely understood each other. They engaged in substantive discussions about their aspirations. They articulated their future desires in specific terms: a large family, a life with greater autonomy and privacy than the royal apparatus permitted, something perceived as genuinely their own, rather than institutionally managed. She ultimately concluded the relationship, and the underlying reasons are reportedly more nuanced than the prevailing public narrative suggests. The common narrative suggests Chelsy found the royal spotlight unmanageable, the press pressure unsustainable, and made a practical choice that a relationship with Harry was incompatible with her desired life. This perspective contains elements of truth. However, Angela Levin, a biographer with extensive and unique access to Prince Harry over many years, has presented an alternative depiction of that relationship, one reportedly less favorable to Harry than the commonly accepted version. Levin's account indicates Harry's reported shortcomings in relationship commitment, his expectation of loyalty without reciprocal effort, and his alleged prioritization of his own needs and schedule over Chelsy's academic pursuits and ambition for an independent life. She details his reported reaction to her university attendance as one of frustration at her perceived unavailability, rather than providing support or visiting. The specific point Levin reports that Harry reportedly began seeing other women while Chelsy was at university instead of maintaining the relationship remotely offers a detail that, if accurate, could explain the eventual separation without the royal pressure being the sole or primary factor. The particular resonance for Harry stems from his consistent discussions with Chelsy Davy about wanting a large family. Yet, upon his relationship with Meghan Markle, who, being older, faced understandable biological considerations, the couple made what was reportedly a mutual decision to have only 2 children. This decision reportedly surprised many of Harry's close friends. Chelsy Davy demonstrated the level of self-respect by refusing to sustain a relationship that demanded her availability on his terms without reciprocal commitment. She established her own life in the clearest possible sense. She pursued education, she worked, and she developed a jewelry business into a genuinely successful enterprise. She did this without leveraging her past royal connection for commercial gain, without publishing a tell-all account of the relationship's difficulties, and without constructing a brand around the royal proximity she had intentionally departed. She married an individual who reportedly provides consistent presence and who does not appear to necessitate a managed public image for their relationship as a commercial venture. She now has 3 children. She resides in a country she reportedly cherishes, with a life that, by all external measures, appears to fulfill her actual desires. This represents the precise and observable contrast presented by the photographs of baby Finn. It is not merely a former partner having a child, but rather the specific life, the 3 children, the independent achievement, the privacy, the authentic happiness unburdened by curation that Harry once articulated a desire for and that Chelsy is reportedly now experiencing. It has been observed that she was an ideal match for him, young, attractive, British, residing in Southern Africa but maintaining British roots, and they reportedly shared significant enjoyment together. However, it was also understood that she grew weary of his reported moodiness and insecurity, which led to their trial separations. Therefore, while he might reflect on that as a simpler path, it is also suggested he is content in California, particularly with activities like paddling in the Pacific. It is speculated that she would have adapted well and would have been very content as the Duchess of Sussex. Now, it is important to delineate the speculative aspects of this observation from the factual. The fact remains that the photographs exist, Chelsy's life is publicly verifiable, and it notably mirrors the family life Harry reportedly described during their relationship. The speculative element concerns the claim regarding Harry's precise emotional response. No one outside his immediate confidants can verify this, and I am not asserting such knowledge. However, the inherent structural irony of an individual who articulated a desire for a particular life observing someone else living it is evident and observable, irrespective of Harry's private sentiments. The contrast between Chelsy's situation and his own would register as significant without requiring exceptional emotional sensitivity. If Palace Insider provides value in dissecting this narrative, including the Chelsy context, the full implications of the 2-child limit, the Manchester speech transcript, the Vanity Fair report, and the Jordan footage, please consider engaging with the content. It is a common sentiment to observe Chelsy today and perceive that her choices were sound, particularly when contrasted with Prince Harry's reported distress, his alleged preoccupation with past grievances, his ongoing legal challenges, and a pervasive sense of sadness and resentment reportedly associated with him. Now we turn to the 2-child limit, a notable chapter in the Sussexes' public communications history. This commitment appears distinctly more incongruous in 2026, given Chelsy's 3rd child, than it did upon its initial announcement in 2019. In 2019, during a carefully managed Vogue interview strategically crafted in its chosen outlet framing and subject matter to convey a specific brand message, Harry publicly stated that he and Meghan would have a maximum of 2 children, citing environmental considerations. The stated justification was a climate change framework aimed at minimizing their family's ecological impact as a contribution to global sustainability during a period of heightened climate concern. It is important to distinguish between established facts and interpretation here. The fact is that Harry made this public statement in a widely reported prominent interview. Another fact is that individuals intimately familiar with Harry expressed surprise, as they knew him to have consistently articulated a desire for a large family. The speculation, which I clearly identify as such, is the prevalent interpretation among royal observers that this statement aligned more with Meghan's priorities and public image than with Harry's long-held personal aspirations. Supporting this speculation is the observable reality. Chelsy Davy, who years prior engaged in those substantive family planning discussions with Harry, has now welcomed her 3rd child. This 3rd child directly contradicts the stated position that 2 was the appropriate number. If the 2-child limit genuinely represented Harry's convictions, a position derived from his own reflection rather than a strategic brand decision. It would be less remarkable when considered alongside Chelsea's choices. The juxtaposition appears significant precisely because of those earlier conversations and Harry's specific expressed desire for a tribe rather than a controlled family size, making the 2019 statement appear in retrospect as a divergence from a personal wish rather than an articulation of an internal belief. For continued analysis, subscribe to Palace Insider and share your perspective in the comments. Was the two-child announcement Harry's authentic stance, or did it appear to you as strategic brand positioning from the outset? We now address the One Young World Conference in Manchester, an event multiple royal observers have characterized as a pivotal moment in how informed audiences interpret the Sussexes' public endeavors. It marked a point where the disparity between their declared mission and its observable execution became undeniable, especially before an audience the Sussexes most needed to influence. The conference gathered young leaders globally, individuals actively addressing tangible issues within their communities, who had travelled to Manchester specifically to engage with the global challenges the Sussex operation highlights as its primary focus. This was not a celebrity event, a red carpet occasion, or a brand launch. This was the precise audience for whom the mission statement was intended. These were the individuals the Sussex operation most critically needed to impress, as their favourable impression would validate the mission as substantive rather than merely superficial. The speech lasted approximately 20 minutes. Analysts who reviewed the transcript noted that within this duration, Meghan referenced herself, her experiences, her emotions, and her reactions over 50 times. The central theme of the speech consistently and repeatedly focused on her journey, her acknowledgements, her moments of realization, her experiences at specific gatherings, her feelings of belonging among world leaders, and her preservation of a small paper placecard as proof of her presence. The speech's structure, emphasis, and focus were predominantly on Meghan rather than on the young leaders who attended Manchester seeking inspiration and engagement with global problem-solving. Ella Robertson, daughter of the organization's co-founder, reportedly observed the speech and offered a direct assessment. She had ruined it. The rationale she provided directly corroborated the transcript analysis. Every point reverted to Meghan rather than to the individuals the conference aimed to serve. Tom Bauer has cited this speech as an unambiguous early indicator of a fundamental issue within the Sussexes' philanthropic model, when afforded a significant platform to undertake meaningful work with a specific audience. The consistent inclination is towards self-reference over external service. This is particularly relevant because the stated mission of the Sussex operation emphasizes service and impact. The discrepancy between the declared mission and the Manchester delivery was sufficiently clear to elicit the reported reaction from an attendee. The contrast with speeches that genuinely serve their audience, those that use the speaker's personal experience as a bridge to a broader message rather than as the message itself, was apparent to those present. The internal reaction from the conference suggested that the audience recognized this and formed their own conclusions. This represents a recurring pattern identified by critics and observers of the Sussex operation across numerous public appearances and platforms. It suggests not necessarily a lack of sincerity in their work, but a consistent and visible prioritization of the presenter over the stated objective. In Manchester, before the very audience most attuned to this specific distinction, young leaders who grasp the nature of service because they are actively engaged in it, the discrepancy was pronounced enough to provoke the stated response from individuals who had anticipated a different outcome. Next, we turn to the Jordan trip, as the footage warrants careful examination beyond typical tabloid sensationalism. The key distinction lies between speculative inferences drawn from a single photograph and the rigorous pattern analysis applied to extended video across multiple appearances over several days. The Jordan trip provided analysts with multiple public appearances spanning 2 days, yielding footage that allowed for comparative study rather than isolated observation. A consistent pattern, independently identified by multiple analysts examining the same footage without prior coordination, concerns Prince Harry's physical reactions to Meghan's public displays of affection. These displays, including hand-reaching and intentional physical proximity, have been a regular and noticeable feature of their joint public engagements since the early stages of their relationship. In the Jordan footage, these responses reportedly differ in an observable rather than merely inferred manner. This includes the apparent physical distance between them, which is evident even within public settings, and a discernible withdrawal from contact that was previously accepted. I am not presenting body language analysis as absolute scientific fact. My observation is that multiple analysts have arrived at congruent conclusions from the identical footage. These conclusions reportedly align with other observable indicators from the past 12 months, and the pattern they delineate is coherent with documented evidence such as 88 days without a shared photograph, separate professional paths, and sourced reports of independent schedules and lives. The identified pattern across the extended footage remains consistent among multiple analysts. My interpretation of its implications for the relationship's current status is offered as an opinion, not as definitive certainty. Now, let us consider the Vanity Fair report, as it is arguably the most commercially and personally significant development in this narrative, specifically for Prince Harry. The precise nature of the reporting merits detailed scrutiny. Vanity Fair is not a tabloid. It maintains editorial standards, fact-checking procedures, and a publishing reputation that mandates accountability for its content. Therefore, when Vanity Fair reports that a post-divorce manuscript has been proposed to publishers and that publisher interest is substantial, this report carries a weight that a similar claim in a gossip publication would not. The report characterized the proposal as a book Meghan has been preparing, or that has been prepared on her behalf, held in readiness for publication should a separation from Harry occur. The intended subject matter is framed as life after the marriage ends. It is not a wellness guide or a leadership manual, but a book concerning the marriage itself and its aftermath. To comprehend why this represents the most considerable risk to Harry in the current circumstances, one must understand the impact of Spare and what a comparable book from Meghan's perspective would entail. Spare achieved commercial success, but inflicted specific and enduring damage on Harry's relationships with his family, his brother, his father, and the institution. Every individual depicted, every private conversation recounted, every family secret converted into published material represents a relationship irrevocably altered by the decision to publish. Harry comprehends this from the perspective of the author. He elected to publish the private discussions and intimate moments of his family. Fully aware of the consequences for the subjects, he also understands it from the recipient's perspective, having been a family member whose private life has been publicly commodified over years. A book by Meghan detailing the intricacies of their marriage from her viewpoint, drawing on her access to their private life over recent years. The disagreements, the confidences, the private decisions, the remarks he made believing he was speaking solely to his wife would inflict upon Harry, precisely what Spare inflicted upon William and Charles. It would transform his private existence into her commercial asset. It would disseminate trusted remarks to a global readership. He would experience firsthand, as a recipient, the precise sentiment his brother experienced reading Spare, the distinct sensation of witnessing one's private life become another's commercial product. This is the specific leverage several commentators have identified as the unspoken constraint affecting Harry's situation presently. It complicates the dynamic beyond a simple choice between remaining in a visibly strained marriage or departing from it. Whether the manuscript exists as described, or whether the proposal was a genuine commercial undertaking or a strategic message conveyed through a publication known to be followed by Harry, remains externally unverifiable. What is verifiable is the existence of the report, its publication by Vanity Fair, and Harry's lack of public rebuttal. The security dispute introduces an additional layer to this scenario and warrants examination, as it highlights a specific divergence between Harry's articulated stance and his observable conduct. His asserted position is that the security threat to him in the United Kingdom is severe enough to necessitate taxpayer-funded armed police protection during visits, and that without such protection, visits are untenable. His observable actions, however, include a travel history encompassing Nigeria, Colombia, and Jordan regions with documented security risks and active threat landscapes undertaken without the formal protective detail he deems indispensable for travel to London. This disparity is not subtle, and public reception has been largely unfavorable. Critics have pointed to the incongruity between the declared threat level and his actual travel decisions. Conversely, supporters have contended that the particular nature of the threat in the United Kingdom, specifically its media environment and distinct hostility, differs qualitatively from threats encountered elsewhere. Both perspectives have been advanced, and both possess a degree of merit. The observable reality is that the inconsistency between the claimed threat level and his actual travel choices has fostered substantial and sustained public skepticism regarding the security claim as his primary motive. This skepticism has significantly eroded his standing in the public discourse concerning the allocation of public funds for his protection. The UK public's tolerance for the security argument has reportedly diminished over time, attributable to a combination of emotional, financial, and a specific sense of fairness that the British public often applies with distinct rigour. This occurs against a backdrop of a national economy under considerable strain, a public service sector experiencing reductions that directly impact ordinary citizens, and a former prince who voluntarily disengaged from the institution that would have provided his protection freely. Having established an expensive life abroad, he now reportedly seeks funding from the taxpayers of the country he departed to cover protective costs at the same level they would have been provided had he remained. Such a request is genuinely challenging to present in a manner that elicits broad public sympathy. Here, these various threads converge. I aim to distinguish clearly between what is speculative and what constitutes observable fact, as this differentiation is crucial. The observable facts are: Chelsy Davy has welcomed her third child, and her publicly visible life reportedly aligns with the specific family and career model Harry described desiring during their relationship. Harry announced a two-child limit in 2019, a statement that surprised individuals well acquainted with him. The One Young World speech in Manchester reportedly contained over 50 self-references within a 20-minute address to young global leaders, with the internal audience's reaction reportedly reflecting the transcript analysis. The Jordan footage has led to consistent conclusions from multiple independent body language analysts who reviewed extended multi-day footage, not merely isolated frames. Vanity Fair has reported on a post-divorce manuscript being pitched to publishers, and Vanity Fair has not retracted or corrected this report. Harry reportedly does not possess William's phone number, according to multiple sourced accounts. He was reportedly not extended an invitation to Peter Phillips's wedding, despite the attendance of virtually every other senior and extended royal family member. No meeting with King Charles has been confirmed for the summer period. The speculative layer I apply to these documented facts, when considered collectively across the pattern of the last 12 to 18 months, describes a particular situation. It suggests an individual observing a specific version of his future, progressively becoming unattainable, one choice at a time, over a period of years that cannot be reversed. This individual is now reportedly confronted simultaneously with a highly visible external representation of that past future as seen in Chelsy's photographs, and with the most challenging aspects of his current circumstances, reflected in the Jordan footage and the Vanity Fair report. The Chelsy photographs reportedly carry specific weight precisely because they are not abstract. They are the tangible life in images he once articulated a desire for. Furthermore, the Jordan footage reportedly captures aspects that the managed public presentation is no longer entirely containing. This constitutes my interpretation, offered not as an assertion of certainty. The facts I've cited are documented: the speech transcript, the Vanity Fair report, the Jordan footage, the Chelsy announcement, the wedding exclusion, and the phone number reporting. The interpretation I have applied to them, the narrative I construct from this pattern, is my own, explicitly presented as my read, rather than as established or confirmed truth. What is your perspective? Do the patterns of the last 12 months suggest to you an individual moving towards a significant personal change? Or do you believe the managed public presentation will be maintained as long as necessary? And does the Chelsy Davy situation function as an external reflection that genuinely impacts individuals who are already questioning their choices? Or does that assign excessive interpretive weight to a series of Instagram baby photos? Please share your candid opinion in the comments below. Subscribe to Palace Insider for future coverage. Engaging with the content helps support this channel. We will see you in the next analysis.